Hello and welcome. I am Chris Allen, Executive Director of the Kenosha County Historical Society. I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha History Center in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. We hope you enjoy these interviews. So we're joined here today by John Fox, a retired AMC and Chrysler employee. Thanks for coming today, John.
Thank you, Chris, for having me.
So John, are you from Kenosha?
I am. Born here in 1960, August of I shouldn't say that, 1960, yeah. Yeah, my grandparents came from Italy. They immigrated to the United States. My grandfather came in 1910. My grandmother came in 1916. Interesting the way they met, but we'll save that for another day. My mom, born here in 1926, and we lived in Columbus Park neighborhood. The community around there, most of it revolved around American Motors because everybody worked there at that time. They were hiring, and that's mainly why a lot of people came to Kenosha during the early 20s and that.
What schools did you go to growing up in Kenosha?
Well, my first school I went to Our Lady of Mount Carmel, kindergarten through third grade, and then I went to Bain School, fourth through sixth, Washington Junior High, and then Mary D. Bradford High.
And what did you do after high school?
Oh gosh. Yeah, what do you mean, like work-wise?
Yeah,
Okay.
Graduated high school and then
Graduated high school, and I wasn't even 18 then. I didn't turn 18 till August of that year in 1978. And I was working for McDonald's at that time on 52nd, just 40th Avenue. And my mom has said to me, she's like, you're going to go to school and whatever. And I'm like, nah, not yet. So she gave me a year off. So in 79, she's like, it's time, school or you have to get a good job. And I'm like, I have a good job. Because at that time I was a shift manager at McDonald's. And they paid good money. I was making $4.25 an hour. And that was good money back in 1979. But it wasn't good enough for my mom. She knew it was time for me to I don't want to say that phrase, but move on. So, the option was, go to school or get a job. So I really didn't want to work in manufacturing or anything like that, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. You're 18 years old and you're still like, well, that's how it was for me anyway. So my Uncle Dominic worked at American Motors, as my Uncle Dino and my Uncle Nello and my Aunt Jenny. A lot of my family members worked there. So my Uncle Dominic got an application, gave it to my mom. She's like, here you go, fill this out. And it's like, no. And it's like, so I filled it out. She gave it back to my uncle. I went to the employment office. Then you get the call, and I went in and had that very first interview. It was interesting because they were mass hiring at that time, American Motors. They were mass hiring. So did the interview, and then it was like every summer I always went fishing with family friends. Mr. Lewis Alozzi would plan this fishing trip way up in northern Minnesota. And it was just like a fun thing. There's like 10 of us, we all went, and it was a fun thing. So I decided to go on that. Well, I would have been hired earlier than what happened with me. So I went, and when I got back, I caught hell. And it was like, it wasn't pleasant, because I was supposed to go to work, because I did get hired then. But then my actual start date was in July 25th of 1979 at American Motors. So I got my last fishing trip in, and that was kind of good. And then just moved forward with American Motors at that time then.
You mentioned mass hiring. How many people were hired around the same time you were?
Oh, I'm going to say in the month of July, I think they hired close to 1,500, 2,000 people. And because we had to wait in line to get into the unemployment office, I remember. So you walked in and they called your name because you already applied. And then they get so many people, and then they would send like 8 to 10 of us into the doctor's office, where he just, walked around and gave you your physical, and then that was it. And then the next day, you go back to work. You start work either that day or the next day. So.
Do you remember how much you were making at that time?
I want to say my start was $9.53 an hour, and it was like double of what I was making at McDonald's. And Al Knotts was my manager at McDonald's, and he didn't want me to leave, but I would have stayed because there actually was a career advancement in McDonald's. You can get a good job, a lot of working hours, but the money was there. But I said, I'll stay if you can give me the $9.53, and he's like, it's unrealistic. So that's the way it went. I ended up at American Motors.
Tell us a little bit about your first day at American Motors.
Oh, this is too funny. My job was so simple, and I thought, what the heck is going on? But they had so many people coming in, and they would piggyback you with people to learn a job. Well, the job that they put me on, I took I had to install the nut that they would screw the air cleaner onto. So I had to take a threaded rod, screw this square nut that had a clip on it, and on top of the engine there was a bracket there, and I had to put that nut in and then click it both ways. So I clicked and then unscrew it. So I did that for 8 hours, and I was just like, when I got home after work that night, my hands were like so sore. It was amazing. I just went to the bathroom and I filled the sink with hot water and just put my hands in there for like 5 minutes. And my mom's like, how was it? And I'm like, Mom, you wouldn't believe it. So then that was my very first job, putting in one square nut on the top to hold down to screw the air filter system into it. And then, of course, it changed daily. When you were a new hire, they would just, put you where they needed you. And I learned so many jobs. I mean, even jobs that were terrible, ergonomically correct, didn't even exist back then. I'm 6'3", so at one point they put me into a job in the pit. And the pit was, you got working levels up here, and all these people are working up on top, and then underneath there's like maybe 6 feet wide by 5 feet deep. Then they had little benches that you could sit on, but you had all your parts and everything down there too. So I was putting on they were called EAB, an EAB bracket, and it's what you would screw the front bumper onto. So here I am trying to put in. It was just amazing because I just had I mastered it, but it was hard for me to do because I'm so tall. Then, so many jobs. Steering column jobs. It was a very hard job, putting in steering columns, but I mastered that. And I would beg for them to put me on that job because nobody wanted to do that. I'm like, I'll take it. One day they put me into the Mortex booth. Mortex is spraying the undercoating. And everybody's like laughing. Oh, you're going into the Mortex booth, and I'm like, what's the deal, So they give you a big jacket, long coat type thing, and then you got gloves on, and then it's like a space helmet suit, diver Dan, or underwater, whatever you want, for air. So and then there was this the rod that you had to hold. Similar to a car wash rod, but the pressure on that was amazing. So the guy's name was Clint that was training me. That poor guy. I could just see him shaking his head. First time I did it, I went like this, and it sprayed the whole side of the car, and I just couldn't hold it right. So I did like 4 cars in a row, and they shut the thing down, got my butt out of there, and sent somebody else in. So I don't know if that was good or not, but just that I couldn't do it, which bothered me. But yet it was a good thing because I wasn't confined into that suit that you had to wear. That would drive me crazy.
Now, AMC, when you started working there, there was unions in the building. Were you part of the union right away when you were hired? Was there a probationary period?
Yes, there was a probationary period. I think it was 6 or 9 months. I can't remember. And you had union representation minimal. You were paying union dues right away. I mean, that's part of being in a union, and I support that 100%. And you had minimal representation. What was funny is shortly after I got hired in, there was a strike that happened, and the only strike that happened while I was working there for the 30-year period that I was in there. One strike, and I was still on probation, and it was like, what do I do? I'm in my head. I'm like, what do I do? I'm watching people, out there striking. They're asking you not to cross a picket line. Some people did, but I knew what that was all about, and I was raised to not do that, and I understand why I shouldn't do that. So I didn't, and I want to say there was a union representative at the gate at that time, and he said, "It'll be fine. It'll be covered. You won't lose your job." I said, "But I'm on probation." I was concerned about that, and they're like, "It'll be fine." And I'm like, I was okay with that. So it only lasted 1 or 2 days, and we were back to work then.
What did you do? Did you find any other jobs to do? There were strikes throughout your time at Chrysler. Other times where, not just strikes. There was layoffs.
No, one strike the whole time I was there. Layoffs? Oh my God, there were layoffs all the time. Every 1 to 2 years, I think I was laid off for a certain period of time. Oh gosh, and there were so many jobs in Kenosha at that time too. Oh geez, I got hired in 79, 80, maybe 81 I was laid off. I was, because I signed up for a program, because one thing good is they had a program called the Trade Readjustment Act, TRA it was called. And because of the exporting and importing of vehicles, there was a fund set up. So instead of us just being laid off, you collect your 8 weeks of unemployment or whatever, and then you're done. You had the option to get some schooling in there. And I took advantage of that. So the first time I was laid off, I ended up going to Gateway, and I took fluid power, hydraulics and pneumatics, and I actually graduated from that, which was good. The only problem was I couldn't get a job around Kenosha. There was a company in Racine, I think on Durand's Highway 11, I believe, and I can't remember the name of it. It was before that railroad passing. If you're going west on 11 towards Farm and Fleet, Sturtevant area, there was a company, a fluid power maintenance or a fluid power company there, but I couldn't get in there. I got a few offers from northwest of Milwaukee area. I got one from Butler. I went to the one from Butler. I interviewed. I got the job, and then of course I asked at the end, "What's the pay?" And it was like $6.40 an hour, and I'm like, geez, I'm not going to travel that for that minimal amount of pay, because I talked to a few guys that were working there, and they weren't making much more than that, and they were there for 5-10 years, and I'm like, So I just choose to be laid off still, and just work my way through whatever period it was. Got called back, got laid off. I think in the 81 one I got laid off, and I was going to school, and I got a job at Montgomery Ward's. God, what a lot of fun that was, working at Montgomery Ward's. worked around my school schedule and everything, so that worked. Not only Montgomery Wards, but I worked at White End Pantry on 75th and 7th. Bob and Jean Hakey owned that, so I worked with them. I was basically had 2 jobs, 2 or 3 jobs sometimes, because that's how it was. You had to work to make money because we didn't have much money growing up, and working at American Motors changed my life. Wow, that first year I was there, I was making really good money, and of course I was young, and I bought a new car, all that stuff. But that was a good thing.
In '79, when you started, things were changing a little bit with union leadership and that sort of thing. Can you speak to that?
Yes.
What was the union membership and leadership like at that time?
Well, when I first got hired in, it was oh God, how long? I don't want to word this without offending anybody. It was an old school union representation. Oh, by the way, I have to throw this in because I forgot about that. I worked on the line when the last spacer came off, so that was kind of cool. Back to the union thing. There were so many people now involved, a lot of younger people my age, and well, I think I was probably one of the youngest. I was 18. If you were 18, you were the youngest. So, but then there were guys like John Melrod, Todd Onstad, John Drew. They were all, gosh, probably in their mid-20s, if that, and they were just, they wanted to represent us, and I think maybe they were union stewards at the time, or just trying to get into it. But I was just amazed at what these guys did. They would put out like a weekly sheet about supervision, how supervision treated the employees, things that were going on between employee and supervision. Some of it was good, some of it was bad, some of it was funny. But these guys got together as a group and they ran as a group. And I just thought that was so cool because they all got elected, into the higher union positions. And that was a great thing. I mean, because they were great leaders. Of course, Todd. Todd has always been a leader in local and state politics. And they worked for the union workers. I'm not saying everything that was done was good, but there was a lot that was done that was bad that nobody realized what was happening. And I'm sorry, at that time, corporations took advantage of employees. A lot of it was safety issues, and so many of the things, like with myself, the jobs that I did that weren't ergonomically correct, like everything is nowadays. It does damage to your body, and then things happen, and you need to see a doctor and have therapy and stuff like that to correct it. And the company would always buck stuff like that. Union representation was good. It was good because you were able to keep your jobs, while on disability or temporary disability or whatever. And it's a good safety feature for individuals. I am glad that I was employed there.
So you worked there starting in '79. You're working there through the early '80s. How are things changing mid '80s to late '80s?
Okay, so in '79 we were still AMC. Pacer just finished. We were pushing the Eagle at that time. I owned one, loved it. I wish I still had it. Those are great cars, and I was lucky to work on final assembly and then work in repair on those. Final repair was great. That was you needed a high seniority to be in that, and here I was, mid-20s working in final repair. It was like, because they started a second shift, they were so busy with everything, and a lot of us on second shift were all, 2-3 year employees, which was great. But then when Renault came in, we'd get laid off, they'd model change, retrofit, we get called back. It seemed like it was a part-time job for me for about 6 years in a row there. It's like I always had a lot of time off, but always worked somewhere else during that. I'm sorry, I can't remember the question.
Just how the company is shifting, it's changing up until
right
when Chrysler takes it over.
Yeah. So then, same thing with Renault. You know, you went through a switch of models, and to retrofit, or not, I shouldn't say retrofit, to change the lines to accommodate to the new body styles and everything. And that wasn't much to do. You know, it was basically all engines are built basically the same way. All cars are built the same way during those periods. Every corporation had basically the same assembly line setup. So Renault came and left. Chrysler came in. We were building, the K cars. Did we start with those? Omni, Horizons, the larger models. I think we built those too. I'm sorry, I can't remember right now. I worked on in the cushion room. So we were making the Chrysler LeBaron. Was it? I can't remember the body styles. But anyway, I was working in the cushion room at one time, you know, and you could all the plush seats and all that. So those went into the luxury cars. So I'm sorry, I'm losing it right now. I can't remember the body styles. But anyway, Chrysler came in. They were finishing everything that they started with the lines. We were still working the same. Then around 1988 is when they had made an announcement that they were closing down. You know, the company didn't really tell us until there were no hints that I knew of. They had the EAP. It was an employee investment plan. So we all invested in that, you know, to bring up the funding for the company. And then, of course, you know, the Iacocca had the bailout and that, and it was all paid back, you know. But I don't know. They decided Kenosha was done. So they shut everything down. Lakefront, main plant, everything except the engine plant, which luckily the union negotiated to keep that, you know. And so in December '88, well, I actually got to work until '89. I went back because I was working, oh gosh, I'm sorry. I was doing a job somewhere where I had to go back in and finish the models that were left. It was a special line that was up there, and it was a convertible line, maybe? I'm not sure. Or it was moonroofs. I was putting in moonroofs, I think. So anyway, I got to stay until in '89 for like just a week, but that kicked my seniority around. And I was surprised, because I actually could have retired a year before I did. But I didn't know that.
What was that like in '88 when, you know, Chrysler announces they're going to close the plant? They're going to end final production.
It was bad. It was really bad. So many people my age by that time, you know, we're all in our late 20s, and people have families and young kids, and I felt really bad for those people because we were all losing our jobs. You know, I didn't have any kids, and I'm single, so whatever. But there, you know, a lot of families really depended on that place, and gosh, I remember getting interviewed. Now that I'm just popped into my head, I was in Freddie's bar at like the last day, and it's like, you know, Merry Christmas, you know. It was like the 23rd that they announced that, like December 23rd, right a few days before Christmas, and it was just terrible. But, you know, you got to do what you do. You know, we collected unemployment, TRA, and then once that was done, you know, and then you lose your insurance. We had the option for callback rights. Some people transferred to Toledo. Some people went to Florida, California, or wherever they had plants. You could go, Belvedere, yeah, if there were openings there. Toledo's another story. But I chose to keep my callback rights here, so I didn't go anywhere else. And once you sign that, that's what you were tied into. So I did that. And then in, you know, basically beginning of 1989, I was done. I did go down to Toledo before I made this decision, but people that were going to Toledo, there was issues happening down there. They didn't want the Kenosha people there. They were taken away from their jobs, so they were getting violent down there. You know, a lot of vandalism was happening. So I went down there with a few guys. We went for the weekend, and I remember being there and walked out of a restaurant that we were at, and they took my license plates and they bent them completely down, and, you know, a couple of kicks in the car. But a lot of people that were there, they were getting, you know, they all wanted to fight and all that. And it's like, you know what? I'm not interested in this at all. But the people that went down there, some of them made it. A few of them were injured, and I think one, for some reason, passed away, and I can't remember why that was. But I kept my rights, callback rights here. So
What's next for John Fox at that point?
at that point, geez, I was everywhere. 89, in the first 3 years, I was cutting lawns, painting houses, you know, remodeling, building decks. I was bartending. Actually, I was bartending while I was working too. Bartending at a bar downtown, Francisco's Lounge, always a thrill. That was a great experience there. I actually was there for 9 years.
Did you ever make it back to Chrysler?
Did. I was shocked. Prior to going, like in 92, 91 or 92, I got a job at Neighborhood Housing Services, and I was the what was I called? It was like a general contractor for them. I can't remember. There was a name for it, but I don't remember. Neighborhood Housing Services went into targeted areas like Lincoln Park at that time, Columbus Park, Frank School area, and we're buying up bad houses, in shape, bad trouble houses, and it was a program that was funded through CDBG funds through the city, and what a great job that was. I am actually very proud of working there. A lot of the if you drive through Lincoln Park area, you see it the most in quantity, because there's so many brand new houses that were built in the 90s to probably till about 5-6 years ago, and just driving through there now, and I see, wow, I helped make a change on this, and I love that. I take people that aren't familiar with Kenosha, I'll take them for a ride, and I'll say, well, this is what I used to do when I take them down these streets down there. I'm like, that was my first project, that was my second project, and I met so many good people that live in those neighborhoods. It was just exciting work. I always had exciting jobs, always. It was always fun. So I did that till I think 95. Then I opened up an antique shop downtown. My buddy Frank Christan he was laid off from AMC Chrysler also. So he had a building down there. It's like, let's open up a shop. So we did. And then he got called back to work, and then I ended up taking the shop over from him. And so we did that. In late 99, I get a call, you know, we're looking to have you come back to work for us. And And I'm just like, no, I'm not going back. I liked my life, you know. It was fun. I wasn't a rich man at all, and I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was having a good time. I enjoyed everything I did. So I was talking with Todd Onstad, and because I've always maintained a friendship with him since '79, and he says, "No, you gotta come back." He says they're offering a $1,500 bonus if you come back and work a month. And I'm like, all right. Here's my head's going, take the $1,500 plus my wages for 4 weeks, and then I'm done. You know. When I got back in there, I was put into Department 827, which was the 2.7 liter engine, and it was a newer engine plant at that time. And it was like, wow! I was amazed. It was like, I was shocked. But they also had the old 4-liter engine, the straight six, and that was still going, and it was like, that was still a pit. but the 2.7 liter engine department, wow. So luckily I got called back in there, and I'm thinking, wow, this is great. After that month, I'm like, I'm staying.
You have a unique perspective, really. You left in '88, you come back in '99. How were working conditions different? How was company culture different? What other changes?
The engine division is nothing to compare to assembly. Assembly, you're physically inside of a car, laying on your back, doing, you know, just it's nothing like that. The engine division, the 2.7 liter, you had, you know, the engines were on carriages. It would come to your workstation and stop. So basically you had a certain amount of time to do whatever you had to do on this, hit a button and you release it. And if you got behind, it was okay. You could catch up quick. The ergonomics were great. You didn't have to lift, you know, something that was heavier than 20 pounds or you know, the repetitious work was all made to everything was ergonomically correct, and I was just, wow, this is so cool, you know, and it was just amazing. There's no comparison between what I went back to in actually it was 2000 compared to leaving in '88. The jobs were good. People. I always had a good time with people I work with, and it's like, because it passes the time of day. If you want to be a curmudgeon and whatever, you know what I mean, then sit there and be miserable. I'm okay with that. No. So then they came in and said they were building the 3.5 liter. And that was cool, because I think that was completed in 2003. And I was lucky. Eric, what's Eric's name? Eric Albrecht was my supervisor. What a great guy. And I knew Eric for a long time, and he knew that I was a good worker, and so he made it possible that I was put in on a pilot crew over there in the new engine, in the 3.5 liter, and I went over there and it was like, wow, helping set up the jobs, you know, and learning every job. I knew every job on that line. And then, of course, they moved Eric over there then, so he was like, you know, we had a great crew. We all worked together good. And what was good about working there at that time, in the 3.5 liter, you less management. You basically had a say. If we were putting in a product together and something was bad, like at times there's bad stock, you know, and it's like, oh, we can't use this, you know, and you can actually shut the line down. If you used to do that before, they'd can you know, you didn't have that type of an authority to do something like that. And then, but that also showed that so many people, enjoyed their job and cared about their job. Not that, everybody used to think, you guys are drunks, this and that, and it's like, going across the street to the bar every day, and it's like, that's a whole nother story. If we got time, I'll get into that, but 3.5 liter was just heaven. That was even better than the 2.7 liter. The 4-liter engine, that was the pit. It was just the pit over there. It was dirty, grungy, just like it was back in '88. But the people that were working in there, they didn't want to go into the new sections. They liked working there, which was fine. I worked in there a few times. I didn't like working there. So, in the 4-liter engine.
Well, you just mentioned something, and we do have time.
Yeah.
So, culture and running across the bar and just relationships with your coworkers. What was that like at AMC and later on Chrysler?
Geez, from '79 to '88, I'll just use, it was both main plant and downtown. It was both. There's so many bars, and all these bars served food. So everybody would run out, and sure, people drank beers and had a couple of shots or whatever, but people went out there to eat too. You ate. A lot of people ate. I can tell you maybe 5 times in the whole period that I worked there that people came back so drunk that they couldn't do their job. Maybe 5 times, but we took care of them, because we all became a family. Every department had X amount of people in there, and you're with these people 8 to 10 hours a day sometimes, and you become friends and you become a family. They're your work friends and that, and some, when you leave, you carry on that friendship outside of the plant. Some don't. They go home and they got their separate lives. But I would go to Freddy's all the time, Freddy's East, and I would rent a parking space right behind, so I could pull in there and I could leave wherever I was living at that time, and within 7 minutes I could get to work, and I'd leave to go to work if I started at 7:30 in the morning, which is I don't know if it was 7:30, but if I started at 7:30, I'd leave at quarter after 7 to get to work on my job at 7. Wow, that's a great experience, especially if you're traveling back and forth. I forgot that I worked at Siemens ITE in Mundelein. That was a long drive too. But anyway, I still have people that I see that were friends since I've been 19 that I met at Chrysler. Bobette Hamilton, I just saw her the other day. I see her all the time. And you create a good friendship with these people. And if you don't see them for a couple of years and you bump into them, it's just like you never not saw them. So it was a big part of your life.
How vibrant were the businesses that surrounded the plant?
American Motors, Chrysler, AMC, Jeep, whatever you want to call it. This factory in this city, at Lakefront and at Main Plant, the small businesses that were around them, the mom and pop restaurants, the taverns, and the small manufacturing companies in this city, which were a lot of them, supplied parts for American Motors, and everybody that worked there, a lot of people wanted to go out and eat at lunchtime because you got a half-hour lunchtime. It's amazing what you can really do in a half hour, And all these bars thrived on these plants. I mean, if you were a bartender back in 1986, because I would bartend and work downtown, you're making. I was lucky bartending. They paid us $6 an hour there, but then you were also getting tips from these guys. And most American Motors employees tipped you $1 back then. That was a lot of money. So many people and so many people of this community made their living off of that, not working there. And when in '88, when everything shut down, within a year, so many places were done. So many small businesses were done. The Kenosha Achievement Center, you know, they did a lot of sub work for American Motors. They would get shipped parts and they would pre-assemble them there, and they'd come back. You know, that's one thing good that Chrysler, American Motors started that with the Kenosha Achievement Center, and then once that left, they suffered. You know, and I'm sorry that all left. I really am, because younger generations really needed to have a facility like that to work for. Not everybody can be a doctor or a lawyer or an attorney, or, you know, there's only so many positions available. These are. I'm not saying that I was a somewhat educated individual, and I enjoyed working there. You know, more so than being in an office, because I did all that. I sat in an office when I worked in Mundelein. It was like, oh God, this is terrible. American Motors had a great impact on this city, and when Chrysler left, it was very detrimental. The city of Kenosha at that time was strong. They moved forward with the industrial park and trying to bring in business back to Kenosha. We became a bedroom community for a while with the influx of people from out of state coming in, out west, and it grew. So look at where it's at today. I mean, it's huge. I always joke to everybody, I don't like going west to Sheridan Road. I really don't, because it's insane. The way people drive. That's another story too. But Chrysler, American, Nash, Jeffrey Motors was the beginning. Mm-hmm. Sterling Bicycle, right? Sterling Bicycle, Jeffrey Motors, Nash, Calvinator, AMC, Renault, Chrysler, Cerberus. That's the company that shut us down. Fiat came in at the end. That's what it was. But great impact on this city. And this city was smart enough to go where it is now today. In 2016, I got into office as alderperson, and so many of the plans, so many of the things happening today, we started that in 2016. You know, when John and Taremian came back, I came back. I didn't come back. I entered at that time. A lot of alderpersons that I worked with, David Bagdala, John Ruffalo, me. I mean, those guys helped me out tremendously. And John and Taremian, we'd sit in downtown and just what can we do to change downtown? You know, so much has changed. We got to continue to change, and we did. And so many children from this city, from generations, were educated through AMC money. You know, their parents working there. It opened, the car industry opened up a lot of opportunities for this city.
So in the end, what was your last day at Chrysler?
Oh gosh. I thought it was October 31st, but it wasn't. It was October 29th. 2010 was my last day. I thought we were going to stay longer, but they cut us that day. Everybody was done. It was a surprise that day. But yeah, that was my last day. And I had a blazer and pants that were matching, AMC, and had AMC logos all over it. And I bought it probably 20 years ago at some shop in Chicago. And I kept it. I said, my last day I'm going to wear this, and I wore it. I'll give you a picture of it. But there's a picture of me standing outside the fence on 60th Street like this. Looks like I'm in prison. And I have this outfit on, or this, yeah. And it was like, that was my last day of work. And I am so fortunate that my mom and my uncle gave me the life that I have. They saw back in '79 that this was good for you. I retired when I was 50. Wow. 14 years now. And I'm enjoying it. That's it.
Thank you for joining us today,
Thanks.
John.